What's up guys, Iceman here. So welcome back to my Haunting Tales channel. I'm going to be posting more videos like this, so if you will, like this video and subscribe to the page and hit the bell so you're notified next time I post. So this is a horrifying Tinder story, and I warn you, it's a bit troubling, so brace yourself. So this girl matched with a guy on Tinder and went on a couple of dates with him. On the first 2 dates, they went out for coffee and then walked around outside. She really liked him, thought he was friendly, good-looking, etc., and thought they clicked. For the 3rd date, the guy suggested she should come over to his place and have some wine. She agreed because she felt safe and comfortable enough to do so at this point. So the time comes and she goes over to his place and he pours her a glass of wine. Things seem to go well. They joke around and enjoy a nice talk. After a while, she starts feeling funny. Now, luckily, this girl had been roofied once before, so she immediately recognized the effects once they kicked in. She was extremely clever in this situation and pretended that she was feeling fine. She told him as cheerfully and energetically as possible that she was quickly going to use the bathroom, as to seem like nothing was off. Once she was in the bathroom, she locked the door and immediately called the police. She told them she was drugged, locked in the bathroom, and that they needed to come to get her immediately. Shortly after, she passes out. She's awakened by the police, but is still very drugged, so kind of slides in and out of consciousness. All she remembers is the police putting a bag over her head as they carry her out of there. She was saved. A few days later, she is asked to come down to the police station to give her declaration of events. After doing this, she asks whether she remembers the police putting a bag over her head correctly, or if it was imagined due to the drugs, or what was up with that. They tell her that they indeed did put a bag over her head because they decided it would have been too traumatizing for her to see as they carried her out of there what the guy had prepared and set up for her in the living room. The guy ended up in jail, and to this day, she doesn't know what he had in mind for her, but it's clear that it was very messed up. Jeez, that is disgusting. I wonder what the hell was gonna happen to her. It's crazy how you really can't trust anyone out there. And as far as I see it, you have to be extremely cautious before going into someone's apartment or whatever. And maybe you should even consider getting to know them for a little bit more than just a couple days or whatnot. But I'm glad that chick got out of there alive and knew exactly what to do. It seems like she acted on that just in time. So here's another story. Make sure you stay till the ending. So a while ago, I got matched with this girl. She seems kind of cute. I come up with a cheesy but not creepy opener, and we talk for a while. Now, normally, I like to stalk my Tinder matches a bit. Nothing too sketchy, but I like to make sure they're real people at first. A quick Google search, check for them on Facebook, reverse image search their photos, and things like that. But the first red flag was that I couldn't find this girl on Facebook at all. So I complained to her about it. She says something about how she doesn't really use Facebook all that much or something. I get her last name, and suddenly, there's a Facebook. No posts older than a few days. Only like 5 photos. She's got a super Russian name. It looks like every spam Facebook friend invite I've ever gotten. But I'm lonely, so whatever, we keep talking. Finally agree to hang out. She tells me about a bar halfway between where she allegedly lives and where I live. I think, okay, public place. I can dig it. But I can't shake the image of showing up at this bar and being mugged by a group of Russian men, though. So, on the way, I deposit all my cash into the ATM. I show up at the bar, surprised to find her there and looking like her profile picture. But then she says, "This bar's too crowded. Let's go to a different one a block away." Now, I'm a little sketched. We walk over to the other bar. I check down every alley for the gang of muggers I know she's gonna lead me into as part of her scam. Nothing. We get to the bar, chat a bit. I'm still suspicious. I get a little tipsy. She keeps talking about this pizza place across the street that's good. I agree we should go get pizza. As we're leaving the bar, she goes, "Actually, let's go somewhere else." She suggests a different pizza place about 15 blocks away. It's freezing cold out, and I'm drunk. Alarms going off. Stupid me. I agree. We walk to the other pizza place. I'm frozen when I get there. We order pizza, eat it, and head to a third bar nearby. I'm trying to maintain suspicion, but it's cold, and I'm still tipsy. We get into the bar. I find out she broke up with her ex of 4 years a couple days before we matched on Tinder. Different kind of alarms are going off. At one point, she leans in and kisses me. I can't help but feel this is super quick, and I'm panicking. We part ways and I go back home. Turns out, she's just super weird, but I love her. We've been dating steadily for a year since then, and she's hands down the best thing that's ever happened to me. And I still make fun of her for how many red flags I had to ignore to keep dating her. Damn, I wonder if this is a true story. It sounds too good to be true, so it's probably not true, but I decided to end it on a good note because it kind of has a happy ending there, doesn't it? But yeah, I'm pretty sure that stuff doesn't happen on Tinder. Don't chicks just catfish guys on there, and only like a top tier guy would get a good date that would be similar to the chick imagined in this story? I could be wrong, but I have no idea. Just let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. I was watching the Jeffrey Epstein doc on Netflix last night, and I'm spooked. Literally had a mini panic attack with all these memories flooding in. As I'm laying in bed watching, a girl's face flashes across the screen, and I recognized one of his victims as one of my really good childhood friends. I don't know if this belongs on this subreddit, but here's my story. I've lived in South Florida almost all my life, with my crazy controlling parents that wouldn't let me do anything as a kid. No phone calls to friends, no extracurricular activities, unless it was academic. Couldn't have friends over, and you can forget about me going over to anyone's house. Plus, my dad worked at my school during my elementary school years, so I had to be on my best behavior. So when I went to middle school, I was so effing pumped. Finally, some type of freedom. My personality started to shine, and making friends came easy to me. Fast forward to a year in, and I had become really good friends with these two girls. We can call them Heather and Sharon. They were both pretty, popular, friendly, but what fascinated me most was that Heather was the only girl in middle school that I knew that was able to sleep over at a boy's house. It was something so foreign to me since my parents told me I couldn't even go on a date with a boy until after I graduated. So I automatically thought she was the coolest chick I've ever met. Throughout our friendship, we were known as the tripod. We had all the same classes and lunch periods, so we all got pretty close. Over time, Heather would always ask me to hang out with her and Sharon, either after school or on the weekends. But with my parents, there was no way in hell. I did attempt multiple times to ask for permission, with no success each time, not even a maybe. I was so bummed because I always felt left out having Heather and Sharon hang out without me, something I would eventually become grateful for. One day, while sitting out in the courtyard for lunch, Heather pulled me aside and asked me what I thought about skipping school for a day. I instantly freaked and thought about the automated message the school calls home with to let your parents know you weren't at school. If my parents ever got that, my ass would be toast. So I shut that idea down right away, kind of laughed it off, because there would be no way to pull it off. But she would not stop asking. So eventually she convinced me, and we were ready to start the planning. It took us about a week every day, during lunch, trying to figure out how to pull this off. The thrill of it had me so excited, as I've never done anything like this. The plan was to have my mom drop me off at school as usual, and have the girls there waiting for me, and we would simply just walk off to the gas station that's near the school, and have one of Heather's friends pick us up. Oh, and I forgot to add, Heather made it a point several times to remind me that I need to wear something that would give me an innocent look. I blew this off because I was already 13 years old, I looked innocent enough. Plan goes smoothly, and we're walking to the gas station. But as we're walking, Heather's cell phone is blowing up. Like constant phone calls and texts coming through. Each one she answers, "Just meet us at the gas station," like we usually do. At this point, I'm confused because I thought it was supposed to be the tripod hanging out for the day. As we get closer to the gas station, I see a group of like 7 other girls standing there, and they're around the same age, 12 to 14 years old. Some girls I've seen around school, others I didn't recognize, but they all perk up when they see Heather walk up. All of a sudden, Heather yells, "Who's ready to make some money?" And almost all the girls raise their hands and start cheering. I grabbed Sharon and asked her what she's talking about, and the look that Sharon gave me is one I'll never forget. It was like she was saying, "Get out while you can." It just made me very uncomfortable, and she never ended up saying anything. It was just weird. A big group of young girls who should be in school just hanging out at a gas station. As we're standing there, 2 black Lincoln town cars pull up and make a sudden stop right in front of us. Heather starts numbering the girls and tells the first group to get in the first car. And as they do, the car speeds away. The other one slowly rolls the window down, and I see this older man with sunglasses on, just sitting there smiling. He asks if we're ready to go to the mansion, which excites the 2 other girls standing behind me. He opens the door and they both jump in, followed by Sharon. Heather is standing next to me and nudges me to go on, but as she does, I start going off on her, asking her what the hell is going on. Where are we going? Who is this man? And why didn't she mention this in any of her plans? She's looking almost annoyed at me and says, "Out of all the girls I bring, you're the only one that's giving me a problem. I thought you would want to get out and finally have some fun. And with your body, you could make a killing." At the time, I was so naive I didn't know exactly what she meant, but by the tone of her voice and how pressured she was making me feel, I ended up backing out and ran back to school. As embarrassed as I felt for bailing on my friends, I feared my mom and her belt a lot more. Plus, going off in a car with someone I've never met screamed stranger danger. I'm so grateful that my parents put that fear in me, or else I don't know if I would have made that smart of a decision. After that, I barely hung out with Heather again. She tried a few more times, but I just got bad vibes from her and cut her off. But I always saw her randomly walk out of school toward the gas station, always with a group of girls. Sharon, on the other hand, she started to spiral into depression slowly. She would only hang out with Heather and would cling to her like a lost puppy. I noticed she would miss school more frequently, until one day she just stopped coming altogether. Years later, I found out she committed suicide. And recently, after watching the documentary, I'm convinced she was one of Jeffrey Epstein's victims, and Heather was one of his recruiters. Jeez, what a crazy story. It's so sad what that situation must have done to those young girls' minds. If this girl actually checked out over going through all that. But I wonder if this story's legit. It seems to be pretty authentic. And even though maybe it wasn't the Epstein Island or whatever, or the Epstein Mansion, but it could have been something similar. I'm sure there were many things like that going on with other people that just didn't make the big news or whatever. But what a crazy thing. And how young girls are probably pressured by their peers and everyone else to maybe fit in or take risks or whatnot. And it's so sad how these sort of things can go on without the parents even knowing. Just makes me feel like if I were a parent, I'd be really cautious with my children because there's some crazy people out there. But what do you guys think of this story? And do you have children? And do you ever fear for the worst or whatever? And what sort of precautions do you take to avoid things like this? This story is about an 18-year-old female with aspirations of being a model. I am now 36, with a lot more awareness, but was reminded of this encounter recently. My family relocated from Florida to New Jersey after I graduated high school. There was a lot of debate as to why I also needed to go since the school I wanted to attend was in Rhode Island. My parents noticed that they had a Miami campus, so the discussion was over from that point on. I was sheltered, and they usually said no to the things I wanted to do. So when I started my classes, I decided to get a job to help pass the time. My parents hated the idea because it took me away from coming home on the weekends or going to events with them, as well as it being a distraction from school. There was a mall nearby, a big one, and I had dreams of being a model. So I fell victim to some of the Model Search USA conventions, but never really knew where else to go from there. So I got hired in as a seasonal employee at Guess, a run-of-the-mill working the entrance position, folding clothes, basically doing all the work that none of the other employees wanted to do. One day, I was working the front, greeting people at the door. A man came up to me and started spitting out compliments about me and how I should get into modeling. I tell him I've been trying to get into it, but I didn't know where to start. I told him that I was trying to get into it, but I didn't know where to start. He mentioned to me that he does marketing for a swimwear line that has a contract to be sold on cruise lines, and he might be able to hook me up with a model line for the job. I responded with excitement because I've been waiting on an opportunity like this, and I felt validated by this guy. I gave him my number because I didn't have my phone on me at the time to save his contact. We weren't allowed to have our phones on in the store, which is also what I told him. So I took a break early to shake off the excitement and chat with a friend. As I began walking toward the food court, my cell phone rings. It's that man. I'm confused because I didn't expect to hear from him so soon. He says that he has a business proposition for me. He followed up with, "Would you let me please you for $500? I was shocked, confused, and responded with, I don't think so. He quickly threw another option out. "What if you just let me pleasure myself in front of you for $200? I reply with, "No thank you. Please don't call again." The scary part is he knew I couldn't have my phone on the floor because I told him I didn't have it on me to take his number down. Did he call because he watched me from that point on? Immediately after I walked back to work, I asked not to work the entrance and had someone walk me to my car afterward. So this short story is called Watch Your Kids in the Stores. I am young. I'm 30, so I'm kinda young. But I see this little girl at Walmart not too long ago, running around in the toy aisles. She must have ran past me 4 or 5 times, and every time she did, a man would be right behind her on her tail. For some reason, I could feel something was off. I stopped the little girl and asked her if she was lost. She said yes. I said, "This man isn't your daddy?" And with almost tears in her eyes, she looked at him and slowly looked back at me and said, "No." I grabbed her by the hand and told her we were going to go up to the front to have them call for her mommy. As the man was in our aisle, I gripped her a little harder when we walked past him and went to the front of the store, walking right past the man, looking him straight in the eye, and he just kind of gave me this side smirk that, till this day, makes the hair rise on my entire body. Had I not stopped that little girl and brought her to the front to find her mom, I'm genuinely scared to know what would have happened to her. Jeez, that's disgusting. It's crazy how that guy actually had a smirk on his face over the incident, like he knew what sort of trouble he was potentially getting into. And he must have saw this other guy who was rescuing the girl as not much of a threat, because why else would he smile at him? There's some real creeps out there, man. So if you guys have kids, keep them close. That's definitely what I would do. And here's the last one for this video. It's called The Time I Was Almost Abducted by a Serial Killer. So let's see how it goes. In February of 2012, I went to visit my grandfather's grave for his birthday. His death was a really hard thing for me to deal with, as he had died in March of 2011 and was still very fresh to me. I was kneeling in front of his grave with my head down, mourning and crying, when my body went into full danger is close by mode. I looked up to see a man running full sprint from the woods surrounding the cemetery. and forced myself to get to my truck as quickly as possible without the man getting close to me. By the time I made it to my truck, he had gotten about 50 feet from me. I jumped in and locked the door, much to his apparent displeasure. He threw his hands up in a huff, like his favorite team had just lost a football game. I started the truck and began driving out as fast as I could, but not before driving right past him. I didn't break eye contact for a second, and neither did he, so I got a really good look at his face. Cut to a few years later, I'm at work bored and decided to download an app that had a ton of paranormal, cryptid, serial killer, and UFO articles. As I was browsing through the serial killers, I came across one that made my heart skip a beat. Israel Keyes, most known for murdering an underage girl in Alaska, dismembering her body, and dropping the pieces into a frozen lake. He would bury kill kits in places long before he ever committed the crimes. After the incident in Alaska, he had traveled into Texas for a wedding in a city not too far from where I live, and had disappeared for a bit, and no one in his family knew where he was. He was arrested in that city and brought to the prison one city over from me before he was extracted back to Alaska to stand trial. About a year ago, I found a book about him that provided a lot of the details I have given here. He had been killing for years, and no one knows what the actual death toll is. He eventually killed himself in prison. At the end of the book about him, he described some of his favorite places to abduct people: public parks and cemeteries. I often wonder if there's a kid buried in those woods. You were fast, Israel, but I was faster, and I'm glad we didn't officially meet. Jeez, what a crazy story. I'm actually looking up this guy, and looks like he's a real serial killer, and he died back in 2012. Man, can you just imagine how when you're out in public or whatever, you just never really know who's around you? Personally, I generally carry a means of protection in case I need to defend myself, and I live in a relatively safe town, but you just never really know. But let me know in the comments what you guys think about these stories, and what do you think about this format of video? There's actually a lot of stories I want to cover on here. There's so many crazy stories like this, and I would love to sift through some and post some interesting ones on this channel. So let me know in the comments what you think about that, and if you will, like this video and subscribe to the page for more Haunting Tales with the Iceman.